Hi, it's Jed Sims, and in this session we're going to look at top and consultants and disrupting the consulting industry. And this presentation is based on one I gave to the Boston Consulting Group many years ago when I was head of strategy for a bank, and I was in fact in charge of buying all the consultancy and consultants for the bank. So that gave me an insight into what was actually happening on the ground. And this is important to understand because you need, as a top partner, to not fall into these traps. So in the previous role, I bought all the consultants for a bank. And what I saw was the primary focus was on selling, not delivering. Now, of course, you've got to sell. Of course, you've got to win the business. But having won the business, you've got to then focus on delivering real value to the client. But the reward mechanism within the standard consultancies is billable hours, and therefore the partners in particular are always looking to sell, because that's how they get remunerated. How far it gets delivered, well, they can usually get away with it for various reasons that we'll discuss as we go through. So delivering is not such a high priority for the orthodox consultants, because they basically, often the client themselves put them on a pedestal so that they say, well, whatever they give us must be great, when in fact at times it's not great at all. We found they didn't deliver what we asked for, but what they thought we should have, or on many occasions what they could realistically do. So they took on an assignment to deliver one thing, but they couldn't actually do that. They didn't have the skills, they didn't have the knowledge, but they were never going to admit that. So they gave us a half-baked version of something they hoped they could get away with. And in most cases they often do, because the client does not hold them to account and say, no, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable in terms of behavior or outputs or whatever. To give you an example, we were working for a client where the other consultancy was IBM, and this assignment started in June, and we said by the end of August we want from IBM a estimate of how much this whole outsourcing contract was going to cost to the nearest 100 million. 200, 300, 400, 500, what sort of figure are we looking at here? They knew that in June. On the 28th of August, they turn up and say, we're not quite going to make it, folks. And we said, okay, so what's the revised delivery date for this quote, or this estimate? They said April next year. Now, I was mortified. The client said, okay. They should have been fired on the spot. If they couldn't do that, then why on earth are we dealing with them? Next thing we found was they're constantly trying to sell the next assignment. So there's this constant focus on the next assignment, the next assignment. In fact, internally, they will often identify opportunities to add real value to the business and park it, because we'll make that the next assignment. We'll sell them something else to deliver that. So instead of over-delivering, they under-deliver. They deliver to the margins very closely, because they don't want to do anything in this assignment that they could sell as another assignment. That's the thinking. What happens in the smaller consultancies case is that often causes them to be thrown out because they're not seen to have delivered enough value. In the largest consultancies, they tend to get away with it. The quality of individual consultants was very mixed. Some are very good. Some are really excellent people and really bright and able to deliver real value. But a lot of them are pretty appalling. A lot of them you wouldn't employ. They're there because they've got through the recruitment process of the consultancy. They're learning on your job, and they just don't have the wherewithal to deliver real value to your organization. It's very much a truism that who you have on a project determines the results. The consultants you have on a project determine the results. So as a top partner, you have to demonstrate that you are one of the top bright, value-adding consultants and not one of the rest. Partners sold the assignment and then largely disappeared. They might turn up to meetings or every now and then, but basically they were not adding value in the foreground. They often are adding some value in the background, and that's hence their massive billable hours, but from a client perspective, they're not being seen to be adding value. Therefore, a top partner should be being seen and being on the ground. While you can do a lot of the work off-site at times, you need to make sure you're doing a lot of it on-site so you can actually be seen to be there delivering real value as a senior partner type person. Much of the delivered work was regurgitated rather than original output. Talking to a senior banking manager of another bank some years later, and he had been the primary contact for McKinsey for many, many years whenever they used McKinsey in the bank. And then one day he realized, he found out, or I don't know how, that the solutions that McKinsey were putting forward were rehashes of what they'd told other banks around the world. Whereas the bank had been thinking these were specific strategies for them, they found they were just regurgitated themes of the month. They never used McKinsey again. And internal staff are treated as project fodder, to be used rather than leveraged. Yes, we might second them. They're going to do the menial tasks where ask them for their opinion and so on. But basically, we're running the show. You are second-class citizens to us consultants. Whereas the whole top philosophy is they know more about the business. They're going to live with the results. They need to be integral to the whole process and getting and delivering value to the client. So why do organisations use consultants? To do jobs they're unable to do. So they don't have the skills, the tools or whatever, and that's obviously core to the top philosophy of providing them with the tools, techniques and processes to become capable themselves. And it's really very reassuring when you actually have taken people through a process and you see them start reapplying it on their own to get good results. To do jobs they're unwilling to do. Sometimes that's because they don't have the time, the resources, or whatever, and occasionally you can be asked to do it for them on request. It's not the basis of top, but it certainly can be done that way. If someone rings up and says they want a value equation done in 2 weeks, you are not going to be able to train and take their people through it in 2 weeks. So you may have to do it yourself. To do jobs they're persuaded to do. This is where you can talk to the clients about improving their strategy and project delivery capabilities and returns on investments. When you're saying this is something that's important, every project you're doing should be contributing to your future, your competitiveness, to your success. Every compromise you make therefore in a project is therefore compromising your future, your competitiveness and success. Therefore, getting it right is not just a matter of getting projects in on time, on budget. It's about executing your strategy, maintaining your competitiveness, responding to the market, and being able to do that with the tools, techniques, and processes that do it effectively. Another reason why organisations use consultants is to produce predetermined results. The client say to you, the consultant, in effect, please write me a report that says A, B, C, and D. And the consultant goes away, gathers some information and writes that report. It's not a form of consulting we would ever promote. So, on what basis do organisations select consultants? Clients want results, and they want them normally quickly. But use of consultant is about risk aversion. Using a brand name eliminates any blame, regardless of the results delivered. So in larger organisations in particular, they can just go with the KPMGs or the McKinseys or whatever, not because they think they're going to do a good job, but because they're going to do a job for which the hiring manager cannot be blamed. Selection of consultants is based on perceived value. So your case histories, your reputation, your performance in other organisations or previously in this organisation are obviously therefore vital. And they want no risk value adding, no cost consulting, and we'll come back to this shortly. And in addition, to be aware that organisations suck at managing consultants and will often re-employ consultants who have failed again and again and again. So there's no real quality of decision making in this area. They don't really know what they're buying. And therefore part of the top value proposition is, look, we are going to deliver you results through a proven process that your people can own and understand and deliver. Therefore they are committed to it, resistance to change goes down, cost goes down, risk goes down, time to deliver goes down, results goes up. After the sell with consultancies, a managing partner once said, the best service we give is usually delivered on the first and last day. In between, familiarity breeds complacency, and the more settled in or more that a consultancy believes they are in the organisation for a while, quality, timeliness and other professionalism decline rapidly. They are there billing time, not delivering results. Consultants are often put on a pedestal, and this is unwarranted. Just because they're from McKinsey or BCG or KPMG or whoever doesn't mean they should not be managed carefully. And therefore, while this may be good for you as a top partner to be a consultant and therefore be put on a pedestal, we also remember that most people hate consultants. And it's interesting how many times in organisations top partners have been a breath of fresh air in terms of actually working with the people, valuing in the in-house staff, delivering results that make their life easier, and doing it in a way that's not arrogant. And which brings us to the last point of professionalism drops. I'm a consultant, I know best, you'll get what I deliver. Whatever I say must be best practice because I'm a consultant, that sort of thinking. You need to maintain your professionalism. You may be the smartest guy in the room, but the point is you want to make the staff feel they are. Lessons to be learned. Keep up with, but out of the politics. You need to know who's who in the zoo, who has the real power in the organisation, but it's not your role to be playing politics. If you are seen to be playing politics, you're normally dead within a week or two. Remember who buttered your bread. If you're brought in by a mid-level manager to do the work and you start hobnobbing with much more senior management, don't forget the middle manager who brought you in. They were the one that gave you the original piece of work. Make sure that they get the credit, they get the recognition, and don't just ignore them and drop them like a stone. Remember that even stupid client managers grow and move, so never treat anyone as an idiot, even if you think they are. One of the key things you should be doing is always valuing the client and all the client's staff. But occasionally you're going to find someone who just does not fit your value system or you feel that is not competent. But regardless of that, you need to treat them with the utmost respect. And it's amazing how 2-3 years later, they're the ones that give you a call and say, can you come and help me? And keep track of expectations. It's very simple that to start off, you're so busy in what you're doing and facilitating and enabling that you lose sight of what the manager, your employers, the people who are hiring you actually expect. And that may change. It may change incorrectly and you have to recorrect it. But if you suddenly come up at the end of the assignment with a solution that was exactly what you said you were going to do, but their expectations have moved on, then you're going to get shocked. So you need to just make sure that what you're doing is meeting their expectations. So the opportunities for top partners. Obviously, you need to be known to be invited. So personal marketing, personal branding, making contact with organisations is obviously a prerequisite to being hired. Be a no risk to the client. Take on the risk of non-performance. Often we'll say to a client, we'll come in and do a value equation for an existing project. If there's no real material difference between what we come up with and what's there, no charge. All that will cost you is some of your people's time. If, however, there is a substantial difference, then our fee is X. So you take on the risk. You add visible value, and that's why doing comparative work up front is very good, because you can say, look, your people identified 10 million, we've identified 24. Even if you only get half of that additional, that's an additional 7 million, and we haven't cost you 7 million. So that's the be no cost. Deliver far more value than your fees. And don't keep parking all these things, opportunities to add more value for the next job and the next job. That's not the way top works, because if you're doing a value equation, you may come up with some other value adding insights. And then you say, okay, now the next step of a value equation might be to do the change planning. And then you pick up the next assignment that way. Make sure you read the top book, consultants.com, to know what to do and what not to do. It's obviously written to educate clients, but any top partner can learn a lot from the stories, which are unfortunately are all true, that are contained in that book. It really is that simple.